Hello, my name is KJ and welcome to my first ever video as well as my first ever devlog on this channel. I've been working with the Unity game engine for around 5 years. During this time, I was mostly throwing things together and overall just messing around, creating small, unfinished projects. Recently, however, I spent my time creating a small horror game. I spent around 5 to 6 months on the project and even released it on itch.io. One of the things I realized from making that game is that I want to be more public with the game development process. So I decided that for my next projects, I should create some devlogs. A devlog is simply a video that updates people on the progress a developer is making on a project. So without further ado, let's get into devlog number 1 of this project. This project started when I decided I wanted to create a Zelda-like project, specifically a game that borrows a lot of concepts from the original Zelda title. I was also just a little tired of working on 3D games. After all my last project, I was really burnt out from working on it for 5 to 6 months. I just wanted to work on something 2D and go back to making some pixel art. I started developing the game after I created the concept for the player's character. I drew a little skeleton with some type of cloak, and while it's probably not the smartest to develop art before the game is even created, I like having a clear vision of what things look like as an artist. Of course, this causes a lot of issues. Oftentimes, it wastes time because I scrap things later, but I digress. After I created this character, I imported it into Unity, made a super simple top-down player controller script, and just like that, my character was moving. But while my character could move, it was lacking something to move around in. I needed to create an area for the character to explore. So I opened up Sprite and began creating some tiles for a dungeon. I want the game to be contained within a large maze-like dungeon. The overarching story and gameplay goals will be to escape said dungeon. So with the tiles created, I imported them into Unity, slapped them into a tile set, and created a room for the skeleton to walk around in. And just like that, things are starting to look like a game. Ooh. Well, things will look like a game once I get this fixed. And just like that, we are walking around in a box. Next up is making it so the player can transition from room to room. I created a simple system that detects when the player collides with the door's collider. Then the camera moves to an empty object that represents the transition room's center. The camera's movement is just a simple tween. Finally, the player is teleported in front of the door tile. Now we can move between rooms. And while this is great and all, I think it's time we add enemies. But before that, I need the player to be able to do some kind of attack. And while the original Zelda uses swords, I wanted the player to be able to throw bones. So I created the sprite, imported it, made the player throw it, and there we go. Now our player can defend themselves. I started with a slime enemy. I imported it into Unity, and I had a slime. But I wanted it to be able to move. And while I could use Unity's built-in AI system, I decided to use the asset A-Star Pathfinding for Unity. The asset allows me to have more control of the AI's path as well as just being overall smarter than Unity's built-in system. The way I want my slime enemy to function is to have it choose a random position in a circle around itself, then move to that target. After it reaches the target, it replays the process again. This will essentially make it look like the slime is idling in random directions. I also need to make sure the random points don't make the AI's movement target within a collider. And voila, the slime is now moving. But as of now, the player and the slime can't attack each other. So I implement a damageable interface script. This script gives the players and enemies and anything that is damageable a health variable and a damage function. I hook this system into the player's attacks and the slime's collider. And now, when the player walks into the slime, they take damage, and when the slime gets hit with a bone, the slime takes damage. The damage system works great, but currently I can't see the player's health in-game. In order to address this, I need to create a new UI or user interface that displays this value. Luckily, this is very easy to implement because I already have the fundamental values updating correctly. I just need something to display it. So after some wrestling with the Unity UI system, the health is now updating in the UI. You may also notice that I added some other stuff to this top bar. Currently, these visuals are purely intended to display what I want this top bar to look like in the future. You may also notice that the hearts are a little off-center. This is because I want to add the ability for the player to gain heart containers in the future. The extra heart containers will fill in the empty space. After a bit of development, I decided the game needed some new enemies, so I created this little bat. The bat enemy does what the slime did previously. It simply idles around and has 2 health. Once I finished with that, I tweaked the slime enemy. It now moves slowly and shoots some dangerous goo at random positions around itself. Now that I have a couple enemies created, I want them to drop items on death. The idea for this system is that once an enemy dies, they have a 25% chance of either dropping a coin or a heart. So I worked on the pickup system for a while, and what I have is this. You drag a pickup item into this slot, then you set its drop rate. Then when the enemy dies, it calculates if it'll drop an item, and if you get lucky, it then instantiates whatever item you get. If the player collects a heart, it heals them, and if they collect a coin, the coin counter increments by 1. Before I move on, I did some slight visual touch-ups. Mainly, I added lighting. Still not sure if I want to use Unity 2D's lighting system, but I believe if I keep the lighting subtle, it could give it a nice look. Now that things look presentable, it's time to develop the final feature of the first devlog for this game: NPCs and dialogue. NPCs are simply non-player characters in video games. The way I'm planning this feature is to add the ability to walk to an NPC, interact with them, open a dialog box, and move the dialogue through pages. Step 1 of creating this functionality is to build an interaction system. The way it currently works in the game is that when the player moves, the interaction scanner moves forward 1 unit in front of where the player is walking. If the scanner detects an interactable object, it prompts the player to interact. If the player then chooses to interact with the interactable object, it runs its interact function, which in this case will open a dialog box. The dialog box displays text corresponding to a list of text variables that define what the NPC should say. If the player is currently in dialogue and interacts with the NPC again, it flips to a new page. And of course, once you reach the last page, the box closes. And with that, we have a solid foundation for a game. Of course, I still have a lot to add, most importantly an inventory system, but also things like quests, traps, decorations, weapon upgrades, more heart containers, a lot more enemies, and how could I forget audio? But I mean, I'm happy with how the skeleton of this game is coming along. In the next devlog, I will be diving into creating the inventory system and a quest system, so stay tuned and subscribe if you want to follow along. Thanks for watching, and see you in 2 weeks-ish maybe.